The next game we have is Unravel 2. So I played this game with my niece a couple of years ago, and it was such a wholesome experience. We were these little yarn creatures running around, and it was all about teamwork. Like we had to figure out how to use our yarn to swing across gaps and pull stuff, and it was so cool when we finally got through a tough part. And the whole game just felt so relaxing with the music and the pretty backgrounds. Like we were exploring this amazing world together. But there were definitely some parts that made us laugh because we kept messing up and getting tangled up in our own yarn, and sometimes the camera angle made it hard to see where we were going. It was all part of the fun, though, and even when we got frustrated, we just kept trying until we figured it out. I think it's a really great game to play with someone because you have to rely on each other, and it's just a really sweet and memorable experience.
Let's get this over with.
Unicorn Overlord puts you in charge of a rebel army in a big anime world where you fight to take back your home. It's a strategy game with lots of cool battles and characters.
Be safe.
You get to make your team really strong and the fights look awesome, but sometimes it can be hard to understand what you're supposed to do and you might feel a little lost. If you enjoy anime games and like making plans, you will love this game because it has lots of characters to find and many ways to play. The story is exciting, and seeing your team win is always fun, even if some of the game feels a bit overwhelming. Stalker 2 Heart of Chernobyl is finally here, and it was definitely worth the wait. This game is a hardcore survival experience that throws you into a bleak and unforgiving world where danger lurks around every corner. The atmosphere is incredible with stunning graphics and sound design that really immerse you in the zone. I loved exploring the eerie abandoned buildings and scavenging for supplies while trying to avoid deadly anomalies and mutated creatures. The gunplay is intense and the survival mechanics are challenging but rewarding. It's not a game for everyone though, as it can be pretty unforgiving and you'll need to be patient and strategic to survive. But if you're looking for a truly immersive and unforgettable survival experience, then Stalker 2 is definitely worth checking out. Space Marine 2 is an absolute blast from start to finish. It's everything I wanted in a sequel with even bigger battles and even more satisfying combat. Ripping and tearing through hordes of orcs with an arsenal of awesome weapons never gets old, and the new jump pack adds a whole new level of mobility and mayhem to the gameplay. Plus, the story is surprisingly engaging with some epic moments that really got me pumped up. Now the environments can feel a bit repetitive at times, and the AI isn't always the sharpest, but honestly, those are minor gripes in an otherwise action-packed experience. If you're looking for a game that lets you unleash your inner badass and just have fun, then Space Marine 2 is definitely worth checking out. Okay, so Sakuna of Rice and Ruin is definitely one of the coolest games I've played in a while, and it's not just a side-scroller even though it kind of looks like one at first. You play as this spoiled harvest goddess named Sakuna, who gets banished to this island with a bunch of humans, and you have to fight demons and grow rice to survive. The combat is super satisfying with all these cool combos and weapons you can unlock, and the rice farming is surprisingly in-depth and relaxing. Like, I actually learned a lot about how rice is grown, which is kind of weird, but also really cool. The story is really engaging too with these awesome characters you meet along the way, and the whole game just looks gorgeous with its hand-drawn art style and beautiful environments. Honestly, the only downside I could find was that the platforming can be a little bit finicky sometimes, and the crafting system is kind of complicated, but overall, this game is a total gem. Okay, so I just finished playing Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown last week, and man, this game is fantastic. It totally takes me back to the old school Prince of Persia games with the awesome platforming and crazy traps. but it also has this really cool new art style that pops. The combat is super smooth too, with tons of different moves and combos to master. Plus, you can find all sorts of cool weapons and abilities as you explore. And the story is actually really engaging with some fun twists and turns. I got totally sucked in. I will say that some of the platforming challenges can be pretty tough, but that just makes it even more satisfying when you finally nail them. Honestly, I haven't had this much fun with a Prince of Persia game in years, so if you're looking for a challenging and rewarding action platformer, definitely give The Lost Crown a try. Okay, so I jumped back into No Man's Sky, and wow, what a journey it's been. I remember playing this game when it first came out, and yeah, it had a rough launch with everyone complaining about missing features and bugs, but honestly, the developers have been working like crazy, and it's totally different now. It's actually kind of inspiring to see how much they've added. You can build your own bases, explore tons of planets with crazy creatures, and even fly around in space fighting pirates. It's like they took all the feedback to heart and just kept adding more and more. It's actually pretty wild how much this game has changed. Kind of like Cyberpunk, you know? Remember how that launched? Anyway, now you can team up with friends, go on missions, and even play in VR, which is mind-blowing. There's still a few little things that could be smoother, like sometimes the inventory management gets a bit clunky, but overall, No Man's Sky is a great example of how a game can evolve and become something really special. Alright, so I jumped into Metaphor Refantasio, and honestly, I was pretty surprised. Now, I am not a big anime fan, but I'll try to be unbiased in my review and say that this game is actually really good. I played for around 10 hours, and I must say that the gameplay is really amazing. It's got this unique turn-based combat system that keeps you thinking strategically with every move, and the story is surprisingly deep with some really interesting characters that you actually start to care about. The world is beautifully designed too. It's like stepping into a vibrant anime movie, but I will say that the graphics might not be for everyone, and I did find myself getting a little lost sometimes, because the map can be kind of confusing, but overall, I'm really enjoying Metaphor Refantasio, and I think it's definitely worth checking out even if you're not usually into anime games. I first played Hollow Knight when it came out back in 2017 on PC, and I totally fell in love with it. It's this awesome 2D action-adventure game where you play as this little knight exploring this huge underground world called Hallownest. The whole game just has this really cool, mysterious vibe with its hand-drawn art style and atmospheric music, and the world is so big and interconnected that you're always discovering something new. The combat is super satisfying too, with tons of different abilities and upgrades you can get to customize your playstyle, and the boss fights are epic and challenging. I loved it so much that when it came out on Switch a year later, I bought it again. And it was just as good the second time around. If you're into games like Metroid or Castlevania, with deep exploration and awesome combat, then you definitely need to check out Hollow Knight. Okay, so I finally got around to playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. And let me tell you, it was like stepping back into a world I knew and loved, but with a whole new perspective. Remember all those awesome moments from the original? Well, they're back, but with even more depth and detail. And the story goes in some crazy directions that I totally didn't see coming. I got so attached to the characters this time around, like they felt like old friends. And the combat kept me on my toes with all the different strategies and abilities you can use. Honestly, I did get a little lost in those massive dungeons sometimes, and the story kind of dragged in a few places, but overall it was an amazing experience that brought back so many memories and made me fall in love with Final Fantasy VII all over again. If you're a fan of the original, you owe it to yourself to check out Rebirth.
Bring it!